Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The Spa in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is Freedom Fighter. Amazing people like you share ways to ensure your freedom physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-given knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and giving a voice of freedom to those who are also looking to have their best life. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro, who is an award-winning author, speaker, and educator. She earned her PhD at Harvard University after a rewarding career for 35 years as a high school special ed teacher and 12 years as a university adjunct professor. But that is just the beginning, because there are some big changes that were life-changing for Marni that we're going to talk to next. So Marni, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. And just to clarify, I didn't get my PhD at Harvard. I did my postdoctoral work at Harvard. I got my doctorate in education in Illinois, where I spent most of my life.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
It's wonderful all across the board here, what you're up to. So I want to jump in here because, there's been so many changes that people have had in their life, and they've had to, experience a lot of different things. And you had a life-changing experience here as far as having numerous family trauma-induced STEs. And people may not necessarily know what that is as far as spiritually transformative encounters.
Right.
And so I would love for you to share what that is, how that impacted your life, and where that has taken you.
Well, sure. Like you had mentioned, they were trauma induced. I chose to leave a 27-year marriage and didn't realize all the repercussions that would come as a result of that choice. But I'm a very positive, caring, loving, compassionate person and just handle challenges with goodness and honesty. And so I was prepared for, whatever would come my way. Ended up losing everything as a result of this choice and had to have a garage sale. And at this garage sale, I had some amazing miracles happen that after a lot of research, I've come to know that they are called STEs, which are spiritually transformative encounters or experiences. And they are things where time stands still, where I'm actually almost in an out-of-body experience, where it's just shocking to experience something like this. And, from a person who had an atheist background and was questioning throughout my life, didn't have any kind of blind faith or exposure to religion or spirituality, I needed confirmation. I needed validation and proof of what I had gone through. So that sent me on a life-changing quest where I was just investigating near-death experiences and just miracles that happen to ordinary people. And most of these do happen as a result of some sort of trauma in your life where you just need to, reflect on where you're at and what you've been through and where you want to go. And that's what happened to me.
Right. Well, it's funny how, we talk about God shows up in sometimes strange and mysterious ways. And, when those things happen, it gives us those opportunity to expand our faith and what's important to us and what life looks like. And so, as a result of this came your 2020 best-selling book. It's award-winning on spiritual fiction. It's called God Came to My Garage Sale. So I'd love for you to explain a little bit more about what happened at that garage sale and what led you on this path to share about your faith.
Well, sure. Part of it is, like I said, I lost everything, but instead of having feelings of anger or revenge or just negative emotions, I was just filled with gratitude and love, and got myself, without knowing it, into some sort of zone where I was just really in a deep meditative reflection. And throughout this garage sale, some pretty amazing miracles happen. Like, one example is, at one point I was standing at the cul-de-sac looking back at my home, so thrilled that I could raise my children in such a beautiful environment, but knowing I would be losing it all. And all of a sudden, a dragonfly circled me, and I thought, that's pretty cool, no big deal. And even when there were 5 dragonflies, I didn't really think too much of it, even though I had never experienced that before. But within a 5 or 10 minute period, I had 50, and then eventually what I believe to be about 100 dragonflies circling
Wow.
me. And it just blew me away. I was just in a state of trance. It was just like a trance state. I just was trying to take it all in. And I was watching these dragonflies, and everything was in slow motion. So, and I do have to say, with all my spiritual experiences, it's all in slow motion for me. Every single time, it's just like time stands still, or there's no time at all. Or like the air is just like clear jello or something. It's very hard to even find the human language, the words to put towards what I experienced. But it was so slow that I could see the veins of every single wing of all these dragonflies. And I saw the iridescent colors, and they were many different sizes. Like, I equated them with people, like they're babies and toddlers and teenagers and grandparents, and just all these entities, which I kind of equated as people, even though they were dragonflies, surrounding me with a feeling of love and with the message that I'm going to be okay. That, yes, I'm going through a transition, and yes, it is hard, but I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that was just one of the many experiences that were just, otherworldly. That later on, after doing lots of research with other people that have had near-death experiences or STEs, that my experience was very common, actually, to other people that have experienced these transformations. And it just set I was on a mission, not only to learn about that, but I was compelled to write about it. And just decided that I needed to put these experiences down on paper, and that led me to becoming an author after a lifetime, a 35-year career as a special education teacher. And 12 of those years I was a university graduate school adjunct professor. So I completely switched gears from what I was doing to just the need to write, and then to also be immersed in nature and just to find healing. Like, I love the title of your podcast with, living in the spa life. I just equate my new life with just waking up to a spa every single day. I'm living in the Caribbean now. I just embrace nature and just all the beauty that surrounds me, and I'm also just taking good care of myself, inside and out. And that has brought me a lot of healing, and just led me on my path.
Right. It's interesting, coming from a background where you mentioned that you were atheist and you didn't have necessarily a foundation. When you had these experiences happen, did you automatically recognize them as from God? Did it take you like some time? Did you like ask God to clearly speak to you around this? Or, because for some people they may go, that's a big leap.
That's a really good question. No, it didn't happen automatically at all. In fact, it wasn't until I had so many of these experiences that I did have to stop. And then I did ask God, are you giving me a message here? These things do not seem to be a coincidence. There seems to be some signs and synchronicities. So it was a process. It didn't happen right away, but definitely when I was experiencing these events, and they all weren't at the garage sale. Some of them were after, and then some, actually, I reflected on my life that I had some other kinds of experiences prior to this. That really, it took a while to put it all together. And, I'm just a researcher and I need information. And so all of that, listening to podcasts, reading books, attending IANS conferences, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, looking into the SAI organization, which is Spiritual Awakenings International, which I've actually been asked by the board of directors this June in a few months to speak at regarding my experiences, because they were so profound. And awareness needs to be brought out to people that, this can happen. It can happen when you least expect it. But no, I didn't acknowledge it right away. It was definitely a process.
Right. I think sometimes, God starts knocking a little bit louder, to get our attention. And when you start seeing things that can't be denied, that He is there and that, He's sharing that journey with us. And, it's interesting about the traumatic experience aspect of it, because I think now more than ever, I'd love to kind of get your take on, especially over the last couple of years, people would maybe even reflect to this time in history in our life of being very traumatic, of people having, their world turned upside down. There's a lot more awakening. There's a lot more realization that we've been delegating, whether, it's our health, our business, all these things, and having to come back to really trusting in God to get through some of these things. And I think that there's been a more reemerging to the importance of family and faith and those kind of things, and distinguishing between religion and faith, right? Because we've seen some things in there that are, opening our eyes in many different ways. What have you noticed?
Well, definitely there is a difference between religion and faith. And, the organized religion aspect of it, which I did explore, there just seems to be so much hypocrisy. And,
Definitely.
and so I really couldn't buy into all of that after a while. I love the community aspect of going to church, but certainly when you want to delve deep into the real meanings of things, you've got to look at people's values and especially leaders. And these last 2 years we've seen corruption and fraud and dishonesty on such a global scale. And I, on a personal level, experienced such corruption, fraud, and dishonesty in my own personal life, prompting me to leave a marriage because my values of honesty and goodness and light and working together just did not, coincide with who I was with. And so much so that I just couldn't stay another day longer. So I think, just in reflecting with all the challenges that people have had, and, we can't deny there are real challenges with people's health and jobs and emotions and just our whole view of what we think the world is about, has really just been altered and shattered. And I think that I kind of look at it now that it's more of, I don't like to use the word war, but it is really some cognitive dissonance between dark and light, between
Right.
good and evil. And I think that is really coming to the forefront, where it is kind of prompting people to, reassess their beliefs and
Right.
focus on what's important to them. And I kind of feel like I had an early start on all of this because of what I went through. My whole world was shattered. My American dream, my fairy tale life. When I realized also that my domestic violence included parental alienation, the loss of two beautiful adult children, to brainwashing, to having memories rewritten, just, false smearing, whatever it is, and this happens to both men and women in separation situations. It's completely devastating when, for so many years, your lives revolved around raising a family and having these beautiful connections with your children, and to have that taken away was just so traumatic. I think that was also a catalyst for my spiritual awakening, because I had to realize bad things do happen to good people, but how we choose to handle these challenges, is a real testament to who we are as people. And
Right.
I choose to handle these challenges in my personal life, as well as just looking at what's happening on a global scale, just with love, honesty, and goodness. I just believe that, justice, as we know, doesn't always prevail, but goodness and truth eventually does.
Right, right. Yeah, I love the distinction on this. And I would call it a spiritual war. I absolutely believe that we're in a fight right now for, it is the light versus dark that's happening. And we have, some opportunities to really get clear on what our values are, what we stand for. And I think that people are really starting to open their eyes and see the type of propaganda that's been thrown out there to, disrupt those values and to have people think in ways that, are affecting our children. And there's just so many ripple effects to that. And we really do have an opportunity as a society, when we especially talking here about, having freedom and creating that we have to take that personal responsibility, and we have to do these exploration and this research that you've talked about, because it's all there, because I also like to, do research myself, and as a former police officer, did a lot of investigation on things, and I would hear things, and, this is where you talk about the cognitive dissonance, because there would be a part of me that would be like, how could that really be true? Like, how could that be happening? And literally you can research it and it's there in black and white. Right. So, if you're not digging deep enough and you're not looking at it, then you've not done your due diligence in some of those things. And, instead of having conversations of people being, right or wrong, it's about how is it that we can discuss this and go, okay, where are you at with some of this? And let's research some of these things together, and let's look at them and find a place where we can kind of intersect together. And I know that there's a lot of fear that is circling around with that as well. And you had mentioned that you use a lot of your writing and research as a way to quell your fears.
Right.
How does that do that for you?
I'll tell you, and I love how you say that this is an opportunity, that we look at this time as an opportunity, not so much that, I'm right, you're wrong, and all that. Unfortunately, relationships are damaged by what has happened and how we all choose to handle these things. Sometimes there's, you'd like to think you can talk it out and come to some sort of agree to disagree situation, but you can't always, unfortunately. So it is causing some harm to relationships. But then again, that could be an opportunity so that, you can let go of some people that you don't resonate with your same values, and get clear on that. And then you're able to let other people in your life that, are more like-minded or would be open to that discourse, Right. But I have found, like you had mentioned, I really found writing to be an extremely therapeutic way to sort out my emotions, so that I didn't say things that I didn't want to say, as a reaction or as a defense mechanism, where I was able to, in my own kind of private world, think through my thoughts and put them down on paper and edit and re-edit and get things clear in my own mind. It has just been very, very therapeutic. And in addition to my spiritual fiction, in the last year, I have actually written a 5-book series called True Deceit, False Love. And that title is very significant for me, because I believed in true love and didn't think that whoever I surrounded myself would be deceitful. But come to find out, there was really true deceit, and the love was false. And that was hard to come to terms with. But writing I was able to just sort of get it out of my body. There's actually research that shows that your body tends to hold on to negative vibrations and information, and just we can be damaged by that, and somehow we need to release it. Whether it is actually exercising, or whether it's spending time in nature, or whether it's picking up a craft, like painting or something that, can help release these negative emotions or positive emotions, just help you work through it. Writing, I found, really did that for me. And I've been so honored that my books have received wonderful praise from endorsers that really found value in what I was doing in my approach to writing, because my books aren't autobiographical. They are very general in nature, so that anyone in any role, any gender, any situation could pick up my poetry, for example, and they could see themselves in that. So I try to write in a way that gets the message across, but isn't necessarily sharing my own personal experience. Just something that, so we can all kind of look at what we are going through and make sense of it.
Right. Well, I think also just culturally, just the trauma in the world. I know that there's been a lot of scientific connections between trauma experience and how it affects the body. That all disease gets, if you research back to an original, whether it was a relationship or something that happened in your life, that if those things end up being unresolved, that those are the things that fester in your body, whether it's emotionally or physically. And that is really the start of disease. And so having outlets like writing or having conversations or exercising or doing those things where we're moving the body to allow those things to move through us really allows that. And sometimes when it can feel so crushing, to be able just to reach out to God and go, help me, move these things through. I can only do these things through you. That is another way to be able to do that. And I think when people realize when the burden feels too heavy, I think this is why people are going back to their personal relationship with God, and really understanding that, we aren't meant to walk through the world alone, right? That we're meant to have support. And, this is part of having these conversations here, is for people to recognize that they're not alone in their experiences. And I think that one of the things that were really tough in the last couple of years with the social isolation is that people didn't they weren't around people as much as they had before, and we are social creatures, and we need to be connected. In fact, I usually wear one of my t-shirts I wear that says social closeness. and we and we need to have.
I'm actually more fortunate than many, because 3 years ago, I moved to a Caribbean island, and I live on many acres in the rainforest. And, even though, yes, a lot of the world events did affect us here, probably not so much as if I were back in the Chicago suburbs and living my life there. So I think I was extremely fortunate to have made the move when I did, not only personally, but also in light of the social isolation and the things that were imposed, that were so detrimental, to people's relationships and their physical health. Like you said, there's a wonderful book about the body keeps score. It's very scientific and technical, but, it's definitely one that I pick up and try to reread sections here and there, because, there was a time when I was in that abusive, toxic relationship, not necessarily knowing it was abusive, but my emotions were definitely leading to some physical ailments. And it's amazing, once you remove yourself from, real negative people, or people that are gaslighting you and abusing you and smearing you, or whatever the situation is, it's amazing how your health can be restored, perfectly. And, I do believe faith has something to do with that as well. So I just feel it's a combination. And I just think our voices matter. These conversations matter, because, even if we're just impacting one or two people that might hear what we are saying and just kind of get an idea that, hey, maybe I can make a change in my life, or maybe I do need to think about, be aware of signs and synchronicities, or I need to reevaluate, who I'm hanging around and if this is very healthy for me. We could make a difference in people's lives. And I know my writing has already made a difference. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's, it's so beautiful to, when you hear people's stories, and I think it's just, stories are so powerful, right? To be able to hear that, if someone has been able to move through something, you can have that, like, I can do it too kind of thing. Right. And, if you see an example of it, it's something that people can lead to. And one of the things I always like to ask my guests, and I'm curious about how you chose the Caribbean as where you live, for one, and also we live differently in the different spaces of our home. We are different in our kitchen versus our living room or our bedroom. So what is your favorite room in your home and why?
Well, let's see. So first of all, I chose the Caribbean because my life partner, Rick, and I had traveled the world. We knew we wanted to make a change from the Chicago suburbs. We spent a month in India, a month in Thailand, a month in Israel. We went all over the United States, and we kept on coming back to the Caribbean because we love the ocean, and we love the sun, and we love the water, and just the environment that an island can provide. So that is the reason why we moved to the Caribbean. And we are in St. Croix, which is the U.S. Virgin Islands. So, we have some things that are familiar, but it's very different too. We drive on the left here. It's a different environment. And then your other question, if you could rephrase that again.
Yes. So how we live in our home, in our spaces that we create. So what's your favorite room in your home?
Gosh, that's a really good question. Where I live, my actual home is actually 4 separate buildings. So one of them is an observatory where we have telescopes and we're looking at the sky. Another building are 2 separate offices. And in some ways, I just use my office as storage space. For books and mementos and that type of thing. Then we have a main living area where it's very, very large, where our kitchen and dining room and living room is, but we also have fountains that you would normally see outdoors. We have brought them indoors. And then we have another space, which is a bedroom, but it's the size of my apartment that I had when I left my marital home. So I can't really say, I guess we move around from all different buildings, and that's the beauty of where we're at and on many acres. I guess in reality, it's not an indoor space that I really gravitate to. It's more the outdoor space because I'm in the rainforest overlooking the ocean. I get to see rainbows every day. There's so much nature, so many interesting creatures that are about. So I suppose my favorite place would be probably the outdoors.
Yeah.
Knowing that I have lots of different places to retreat to when I want to.
Right. It's interesting, especially when you start really noticing the beauty that God's provided for us and just in nature. And I think that really helps to ground us. And when things get hectic or to just get outside, and I think that's where people forget that getting in nature is what grounds us. It allows us to really go like, what, there are things out there that are bigger than us, that support us, that have us move through these things. And I think any time spent in nature is just a beautiful way to express your freedom and to really enjoy that path. So I think that is just so amazing.
And I love that. It's never a dull moment. Every single day there's a new adventure here. But I do have to say that even when I was living in the Chicago suburbs with the cold winters and the seasons and that type of thing, I still enjoyed my environment there as well. And I always created beautiful little gardens, as just places to retreat to. So it doesn't matter where you live, whether it's the Caribbean or whether you're, in the heart of the city, you can still get fresh air, and you can still connect with nature. It just looks a little different where you're at. But, definitely that's a big part of grounding yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they best do that?
Well, I'm not on social media. I wanted to spend more time writing, which I did, because then I was able to put out the 5-book series called True Deceit, False Love. But on my website, I have a contact page, and then there's a happenings menu tab where you can find all the different events that I am involved in, whether it is a podcast, whether it is a book signing. I spent about 3 weeks out in Utah last month skiing, and I did a book signing there too. So all my events can be found on my website, which is the title of my spiritual fiction. So www.godcametomygarage.com.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes, and people will be able to look at that as well. And I'd love to end on, as you know, our theme is freedom fighters and how people are creating freedom in their life. How are you being a freedom fighter in the world today?
Well, gosh, there's, so many different ways that being a freedom fighter can manifest itself. I think in my case right now, because I've really worked so hard at my own freedom within myself, freeing myself from some toxic relationships, but also just freeing my heart and soul to follow my passions, which includes writing. I think probably what I'm doing right now is just lending my voice for those that don't have a voice, that are still at a stage where they're trying to navigate, challenges that what they have been through. And so I think, being a voice, putting out my words, whether it is in a podcast interview or in one of the many books that I'm involved in, I think I'm trying to bring hope and inspiration to others, that they can handle challenges too.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Marni, for just sharing your wisdom and your time with us here today.
Well, thank you so much. Diane, it's just been an honor, and I love following you, and your podcast is just amazing. So, you are making such a difference in the world for so many. So thank you for letting me be a small part of that.
Oh, thank you. And my pleasure. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us here today. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.